Hello and welcome. This is Jennifer. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Today's video is something that is great to do with just a few supplies. It's a white pencil highlighting technique, and I'm going to be using some new and fabulous products from W+9. Be sure to stay tuned to the end of the video. I'm going to show you some other card examples and all the products in this W+9 release. There are some great products in it. But let's go ahead and start with these cards first and the white pencil highlighting technique. Now for these cards, I'm going to be using my Misty stamping tool just because I had it handy and I like to use it. However, you do not need a stamping tool or stamp positioner for this technique. It just happens to be what I use. So you could use an acrylic block if you do not have the Misty. Now I have a piece of dark colored cardstock here, cut to, this is 4 by 5 1/4. Just a little bit smaller than a white note card. And any color cardstock would work for this. Craft would work for it black. Any bold color is great. I'm going to be using this new Beautiful Bouquets stamp set from W+9. This is fantastic because it is ultra detailed. You can use this for watercolor, Copics, no line coloring, anything you want, and it's everything you need in one image. It fills a card nicely. And I talked to W+9's owner, Dawn, and Dawn said she's going to be having more of these come out in the future. So this is just the first in a series. I am so excited about this stamp. Now I'm inking it up with a white pigment ink. My favorite white pigment ink is Hero Arts Unicorn White ink. Any white pigment ink will work for this, but you can see this is a nice bright ink. Now this will stay wet, so I want to make sure I don't touch it again. Now I'm going to clean off my stamp, and I'm going to stamp it again, just part of it. I'm rotating a bit and just stamping a little bit more here up in the top left corner. So I cleaned off the stamp. I'm going to lay it where I want it. I'm going to close the Misty stamping tool on it to transfer the stamp over to the door. Then I'm going to ink it up with the same white ink and stamp that top corner. Now again, you could use this stamp for so many coloring techniques, and I can't wait to see what so many people create with it, but I wanted to do something a little bit different, so that's why I decided to do this white stamping and highlighting today. Since this is a pigment ink, I want to dry it before I touch it because I don't want to smear it, so I'm just zapping it with my heat gun until it's dry to the touch. Now I'm going to come in and add my highlighting with a white colored pencil. White colored pencil is really a great thing to have in your arsenal because there's so many things you can do to it. And I'll link to a bunch of videos at the end of this video that you can check out some other techniques. This is a Prismacolored white pencil, and all I'm doing is kind of softening all the lines. So you'll see I start by scribbling along the white stamped line, and then I lightly fade it out from there. So we're just kind of softening those edges, and what ends up happening is it looks like you hand drew this with a white pencil because we're kind of covering up those stamp lines. Now I'm not taking much time to kind of blend it out. If you want this to be smooth, you could come in with a blender pencil and kind of smooth it out some by going over it. But I just like that look of that colored pencil, that white pencil against that dark background. I'm going to speed this up so you can see more. Now you notice even in these tight little petals on this flower, the technique is still effective. I'm just basically kind of scribbling over the white stamped line and kind of pulling it out a little bit to kind of fade it out some. Now you'll see I'm doing on this, even on this tiny little flower, the technique is effective. If you find that you put the little bit of shading in, you don't want to color it in completely white, just putting a little bit around the outside. If you find that you're losing the shape of your flower, just take the pencil and firmly trace where that stamped line was, and that will really make it pop. So every once in a while you'll see me come in with that white pencil and firmly kind of trace along an edge just to highlight it, to kind of make it pop out. Now, I think it's important to use a good quality white colored pencil for this, but you can try whatever white pencil you may have. I really like the Prismacolor because it goes on like butter, and you can buy an individual white pencil for just a couple bucks, and that's a nice tool to have in your arsenal. Now you'll see that here I'm just kind of going in and adding little touches of highlights on some of these little flower edges. Be sure to allow some of that blue to still show through. You don't want to end up with white solid blobs here. Also, I find it helpful to go ahead and sharpen your pencil every so often so it stays nice and sharp and allows you to get into those tight areas. I have a Prismacolor pencil sharpener here, and I find that it works great, and I can keep my pencil sharp as I'm doing this coloring. Now this stamp I think is a great one because it's a guide. You can stamp it with maybe a light ink onto a white background and do some no-line coloring with it, or you can stamp with black ink and just color it in. There are many ways you can use a stamp with this much detail, and I just thought this white color pencil technique would be fun. And by the way, this is something that would be good to take with you on the go because all you need is the stamped paper and your white pencil. Okay, so now it's time to add our sentiment. I'm using some stamps from a new W+9 set. It's a great one for building up the perfect sentiment for any occasion. I'm going to start with the word amazing first. I want to make sure I stamp this straight. So what I'm going to do is put it onto an acrylic block that has some guidelines on it, so straight on that block along one of the lines. And then I'm going to stamp it onto the background, and I'm going to use the grid lines on my work surface to line up with that grid line on my acrylic block to make sure that I stamp it straight. So I can follow those lines along with the line on my acrylic block and stamp it with that clear Versamark ink. This is just a sticky ink that will hold some white embossing powder. By the way, I did put down an anti-static powder tool first to make sure I didn't get any white embossing powder where I didn't want it. Now after I put on the powder, I need to heat this up. Make sure that you let your heat gun get hot for about 20 seconds before you bring it to your paper. This will prevent any warping and allow you to heat emboss nicely. Now I can stamp the rest of the sentiment right above it. I could have put these on the acrylic block along with the word amazing, but I wanted them to be kind of nice and snug together, so I found it was best to stamp them separately. So I'm going to go ahead and heat emboss this. Now you'll notice that there is some white powder in the background from that anti-static powder tool. That's okay. Once all of my embossing is cool, I can just rub it away with my finger and you'll never know it was there. I also got a little white pencil there on the bottom. I'm just going to use eraser to remove that. And there we have our complete background. This technique is a great way to use up some of your dark colored cardstocks and create something really simple. I wanted this piece to pop up on our card, to have some dimension to it. So I'm adhering a piece of white craft foam between the stamp panel and the note card. This gives it some nice raised even dimension. You could instead use pieces of foam tape for this. However, if you use strips of foam tape behind this, it will likely get crushed in the mail and it'll kind of crinkle the front of your card. I find that this is really effective in giving a nice even raised dimension that will hold through the mail. I'm going to go ahead and glue this in the top corner of the card just for something a little bit different. Now I did do another card that was similar on some dark coral cardstock, and I have on the left the completed coloring with the white pencil, and on the right is without the coloring. You can see how much it adds to it by adding that little bit of white colored pencil highlighting to it. A really fun technique that I hope you'll give a try. This outline image from W+9 was perfect for this technique. However, you can use any outline image you may already have. Okay, before we go, I just want to give you a look at the other new products from W+9 because this entire release, it's small, but everything is fantastic in it. I'm going to show you a couple cards that I did quickly also. So I recently got a puppy and we named her Foxy. So when I saw this Foxy Friends die from W+9, I decided I needed to make something for my son very quickly. So I used the Foxy dies to create this little fox out of felt. So I just used the dies to die cut some felt. I put some little gems for the eyes and the nose. Now this Foxy Friends die, you can use it to create a cat. You can take that piece off the front of it and make it look like a cat, or you can make it look like a raccoon. I like that you can do many things with it. I die cut it out of felt just to give it a little bit of fuzz and dimension, and it was very quick to pull that card together. I also used a sentiment from one of the other new W+9 stamp sets. This is called Biggest Fan. There are some really fun and playful sentiments on this set that are great for using maybe for your husband or your kids. I thought it would be fun to clear heat emboss that love you, that big love you, onto some white cardstock. Put a piece of foil on it and run it through your laminator and gold foil that sentiment. I thought that would be fun. Another of my favorite stamp sets from this release is the Happy Wishes, and you'll see me use this in a video soon. Now these flowers in this you can build together to create a wonderful bouquet or border on a card, and they're also, the style of them are great for many techniques. You could heat emboss them and do watercolor over it for a fun resist. You can stamp Happy Wishes in the center and then arch the sentiment that says for a happy birthday kind of around the circle edge, and then stamp the flowers around that. These flowers are also beautiful for doing faux watercolor, so you can ink up those leaves and flowers, mist them with some water, and then stamp them and let them dry, and it'll look like you watercolored them. This is a beautiful set, and of course there are coordinating dies available for it if that's something that interests you. Along the same lines is the W+9 Bountiful Blooms die set. Now this is a little bit different than other dies I've seen because it cuts the shape and also like a thin outline of the shape also. So you can do some die cut inlaying with this, where you die cut the pieces and kind of puzzle them back together. I really like that hello and that it has the outline for it also. I thought these would be also fun to die cut from felt and kind of piece the different colors together to create a fun wreath on a card. Next up is the Color My World stamp set and the Artist Palette die set. These are beautiful stamps, and I think they'd be so much fun to color with whatever technique you like. I look forward to stamping those little tubes of paint and then maybe stamping those words like inspire and create onto the tubes themselves. And you can do watercolor on this or colored pencil, whatever technique you prefer. Now I quickly did this card for a friend of mine. All I did was white heat emboss on black colored cardstock, and then I used colored pencils to heavily color some bold color into those little letters, just to make them pop a little bit, kind of like the technique we did earlier. Now this is the Artist Palette die set. I think it'd be fun to die cut the palette from maybe some wood paper and then inlay the little colors of paint from maybe some colorful glitter paper or just regular cardstock and put some glossy accents on it so it looks like wet paint. Earlier I used this stamp set called That Is All, and you can build different sentiments. I like that this one has miss your face, miss your smile, miss your hugs. I also like that it has sending get well wishes or sending birthday wishes. But my favorite part about this whole stamp set is on the bottom of the stamp set it says That Is All. And I think that's so much fun to stamp on the inside of any card that you use these sentiments on. Just something to kind of pull into the inside of the card. And last but not least is this really unique and so fun Happy Birds stamp set. I like the sentiment that says you make me happier than a bird with a french fry, and there's actually a bird with a french fry in his mouth. And I like that you can use these with other sentiments also. It's such a unique look. You can stamp little birds along a wire, or you can build a little nest for them. I actually created a little bird just for the fun of it, and I haven't put it on a card yet, but I wanted to show it to you here. I stamped that bird that you see on the bottom left on a few different pieces of colored cardstock with white ink. Then I added some shading to it and I cut the pieces out and pieced them together and created this soft little bird that you see here. I'm always looking for unique stamp sets and I really think this one fits the bill. And of course there are coordinating dies available. So there you have a look at the new W+9 release and also the white pencil highlighting technique I showed you earlier. If you are interested in the products, I link them below in my YouTube description or head over to my blog by clicking there on the top left and you can get much more information, including a giveaway there. Now in the middle is a link to a bunch of colored pencil videos, including more ways to use your white colored pencil to make images pop. If you haven't done so already, please hit that subscribe button so you can see more videos from me in the future. I appreciate you spending time here and we'll see you again soon.